Okay, let's talk about US taxes. They can feel complicated, right? Especially if you're a non-resident alien. Today, we are going to tackle the one form you absolutely need to know, the 1040NR. But to really get what it does, we're going to start somewhere you probably didn't expect, engineering.
All right, I know what you're thinking, but hang with me for a second. This is called data acquisition or DAQ. It's basically how engineers take something real, like the temperature of a room or the pressure in a tire, and turn it into digital data a computer can actually read. It sounds totally random, I get it. But believe it or not, this is the perfect way to think about how the IRS looks at your finances. So that's exactly what Form 1040-NR is. It's like your personal DAQ system for the IRS. It takes all those financial signals, the money you earned, any business you did in the US, and it translates all of that into a standardized language that the tax system can understand. It's literally the bridge between your money and their system.
So here's what we're going to cover. First up, the big one. Are you a resident or a non-resident? Then we'll dive deep into the 1040NR itself. We'll talk about some key rules, what an ITN is and why you might need one, and then we'll wrap it all up by looking at what this means for your financial future in the US. All right, first things first. Before you even touch a single form, there's one question you absolutely have to answer. And it's this. In the eyes of the IRS, who are you? I mean, it really all comes down to this one thing. Are you a resident alien or a non-resident alien for tax purposes? Because that one answer changes everything. It determines what you have to report, what you can deduct, and yeah, how much you're going to pay. So how do you figure that out? Well, the IRS has two main ways. The first one's super simple, the green card test. If you have a green card, boom, you're a tax resident. Easy. The second one is the substantial presence test. This is more of a math equation, really. It adds up how many days you've been physically in the US over the last 3 years. Now, there are some exceptions, like for students or teachers on certain visas. Not all your days might count. But basically, if you don't pass either of these tests, you're almost always going to be considered a non-resident alien. Okay, so let's say you've gone through the tests and, yep, you're a non-resident alien. Well, now you know your tool. This is it, Form 1040-NR. This form is built from the ground up just for non-residents. It's totally different from the regular Form 1040 that citizens and residents use. Why? Because it's laser focused on just one thing, the part of your financial life that happened right here in the United States. So the big question is, who actually has to file this thing? Well, the rules are pretty clear-cut. If you are engaged in any kind of trade or business in the US, you've got to file, period, even if you didn't make a dime. You also have to file if you got income from the US and they didn't take out enough in taxes. And this also applies to people representing certain estates or trusts. But, and this is a really important but, even if you don't have to file, you might really want to. Think about it. What if too much tax was withheld from your pay or from a scholarship? The only way you're ever going to see that money again is by filing a 1040-NR to claim your refund. All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, because this is where the 1040-NR really shows how different it is from a regular tax return. And one of the first things you'll notice is your filing status. This is a huge one. As a non-resident, you can pretty much forget about using married filing jointly or head of household. The ones that usually save you a ton of money. Your options are much more limited, and that alone can make a big difference in what you owe. And it's not just the filing status. Your whole tax toolkit is different. You'll use special forms, like a Schedule NEC for certain types of income. But on the flip side, you can't use some of the common forms residents use, like the one for foreign earned income. And that makes perfect sense, right? The IRS only cares about your US income. So anything related to foreign income is just not part of the equation. Okay, now for another big one, tax benefits. A lot of the big name deductions and credits that you hear about, like the standard deduction or the earned income credit, are pretty much off the table for most non-resident filers. It's a tough pill to swallow.
Now, there are a few exceptions, usually for residents of specific countries like Canada or Mexico, thanks to tax treaties. But for the vast majority of filers, your options for lowering your tax bill are way more limited.
So you might be thinking, okay, I get it. I have to file, but I don't have a social security number. So what do I do? That's where this comes in. It's called an ITIN, which stands for Individual Taxpayer Identification Number. It's a 9-digit number that the IRS gives you just for filing taxes. It might look like a social security number, but it's really important to know it is not one. It doesn't give you permission to work, and it doesn't make you eligible for social security benefits. It's purely for tax reporting. So who needs one? It's basically a 3-part checklist. 1, you don't have and you can't get a social security number. 2, you have a legal requirement to file a U.S. tax return. And 3, you fit into one of the official categories, with the most common one being, you guessed it, a non-resident alien who has to file. But here's where it gets really interesting. Getting an ITIN isn't just about checking a box for the IRS. No, this little number is actually a key. It can unlock a lot more than just tax filing. For example, a lot of banks will let you open an interest-bearing account with an ITIN. Some places will even let you apply for credit cards or loans. And that is a huge deal because it means you can start building a credit history in the US. So this thing that started as just a tax number, it can actually become the foundation of your entire financial life here. Okay, let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. All of this, filing the 1040 NR, getting an ITIN, it feels like just following rules, right? But it's so much more than that. It's about creating a record. Think of it like this. When you properly report everything, you're creating an official financial footprint in the US. You're taking your financial life and just like that DayQ system we talked about, you're translating it into a language that everyone, banks, lenders, the government, can actually understand. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Is filing this form just about staying on the right side of the law, or is it something bigger? Is it maybe the very first step you take in building a real financial identity in a new country? A step that could open doors you haven't even thought of yet? It's definitely something to think about.